So, all right, I'll ask the first question. What is the main focus of your order?
Well, I'm a Dominican, and the Dominicans are about 800 years, and we have a one goal, and that is veritas, which is truth, to teach the truth. But the main order, the group I belong to, is out of Adrian, Michigan,
Mm-hmm.
and the ministry that we were mostly involved in over the years is education, elementary, high school, and colleges.
Mm-hmm.
At present, we're in fewer schools, and I would say our main focus presently is education as well as social justice.
Mm-hmm.
We have several schools, but we also have our literacy centers, so that we continue teaching.
Mm-hmm.
But we have, where people are working with students who have foreign languages,
Yes,
or
ma'am.
students who haven't finished high school,
Mm-hmm.
or just want to learn how to read better, even if they had gone to school.
Yes, ma'am.
Anthony? Okay.
So
And
that's the main thing, yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
if you had to join a different order, which one would you join?
That's an interesting question. I never thought about that. I had the Adrian Dominican sisters as my teachers in elementary school, so I got to know them pretty well over the years because all my siblings went to the same school, so there was a relationship there, and I liked them very much. I'd also like the whole idea of the Dominican life. They all seem to have a good time, enjoy each other's company. I had the BVM sisters in high school. I suppose they might have been another one to consider, but I think it would be more a different Dominican community. There was Ensenada, Michigan, Wisconsin. There's another group in Grand Rapids. So there would have been other options there. I also had an aunt who was a sister of St. Joseph, but they were out in Kansas, so I never really got to know them. So I really didn't have to make a second choice.
What is the main challenge you had to face in creating curriculum?
Well, that's a good question because a lot of times I didn't create curriculum, but it was studying the curriculums that were available. When I was a teacher, to get to know the material that was in the textbook and what was missing, what needed to be added. When I was a principal, I had to do the same thing for the entire school. So the biggest challenge was in choosing the materials that I thought were appropriate for this individual school and the children that are in that school. I have a part of my master's is in creating curriculum, so I did have some experience with that. The biggest problem is finding what's appropriate for each student at the level where they are, so that we, over the years, would cover the entire, if you could say, the entire teachings of the church.
Yes.
That's pretty broad, but, as much as you were able to, cover everything so that the child would get a well-rounded education, know everything about the sacraments, about the teachings of the church, about the rules and regulations that are involved in that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am. Could you see yourself doing anything besides being a nun?
Not really. At one time when I was younger, I thought I wanted to be a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
But I never got any further with that. And we also there was a possibility of being a nurse as a Dominican as well, because we have several hospitals, and we had a nursing school in both of our college.
Mm-hmm.
But once I got into the classroom, I knew that's what I wanted to do.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and is there anything that you could possibly regret or do regret in becoming a nun?
No, not really. I've had a very rich life. I've had a lot of experiences. I've had a lot of support. Part of being a nun is being a part of a community.
Yeah.
So I've gotten to know many people over the years, and gotten to serve them as a prioress in this regional setting. Got to be with people when they were ill. Been supported when I've been ill. A lot of the teaching skills that I developed came, working with other sisters. So what we would do is we would sit down like on a Saturday and plan out things for the week, and they would be able to give suggestions. So we would work together to make sure that, we were giving the students the best that we could and plan, as clearly as we could. And then even today, as I said this morning, I was with a group of sisters, and each first Sunday, all over the community, which is from New York to California, in the Philippines, in the Dominican Republic, we all gather on first Sundays, and we all pray about the same thing. Like today, we prayed about our vows and what they mean in today's society. And another time, we would pray about, what it means to be a Dominican, or different things of that nature. So I really have not had any regrets.
Yeah.
And, it's been an enriching experience. And I've done it for 63 years, so
Yes.
got to be pretty sure of myself.
Mm-hmm.
What attracted you to become a nun?
Well, I think I alluded to that a little earlier with the happiness that I saw in the nuns that I did meet at Queen of Angels. The other thing was, I think my aunt, Sister Matthew, even though we didn't see her very often, when she would come to visit, she seemed to be so at peace with her life.
Yeah.
And with her relationship with God. And I knew from a very early age that God was asking something of me. And I could see some of that in her. And then I could also see it in the sisters at Queen of Angels.
Yes, ma'am.
They were caring, but they were strict. They made sure we learned. They held us accountable, if we misbehaved.
Mm-hmm.
If we were supposed to be doing something. They were helpful. I remember when I was in first grade, somebody knocked me down and I hit my head on the post.
Ooh.
And I still have a scar on that eye.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the sisters took me over to the convent, and she patched me all up and called my mother. And it was just, I think it was some, all those little things that accumulate.
Yeah, the kindness of the groups.
Yeah. And the spirituality, you could see them praying.
Mm-hmm.
You could hear them laughing. You could see them out for walks in the evening, friendly with the people.
Yes, ma'am.
So it was very, very attractive.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's something about being a nun or a sister or a priest or whatever. It's an invitation from God.
Yes, ma'am.
It's not just, I think I'd like to be a teacher and I'd like to join that. It has to come from God.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And it's an invitation that kind of keeps harping at you. Do you want to do this? Are you going to do that? How are you going to, why are you waiting?
Mm-hmm.
What's going on? So, and I believe that very deeply. You can't do it without that vocation.
Yes, ma'am. What advice would you give to someone becoming a nun or any other type of holy orders?
Well, I think my advice would be to listen to God, pray, and put yourself in God's hands, because I do think that there are a lot of vocations out there today, and that people are not listening to them.
Yeah.
They're not responding to what God is asking of them. And I don't think that's a deliberate, and they're not doing it to be mean. They just don't have, maybe not the, like when I was young, there were a lot of sisters around. So you got to see them in action. And I don't think a lot of people have that now. And even with the priests, they're not always as available, especially once you get out of school. And sometimes even in school. Most of us are older. And it's not quite the same. Yeah. But the invitation from God is still there. and it's very, very strong. And if you try it, enter the novitiate or go to the seminary or whatever it is, as you go through that experience, you will be able to know whether that is a real calling. That's really what God wants you to do.
Yeah.
But you have to be open to the invitation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it keeps harping at you until you do. And then if it's not for you, you'll find out.
Yeah.
And it was no time wasted because you will have been spending time with people in prayer. You'll have a chance to get to know a lot of women and men in different communities.
And then everybody.
And I know the younger sisters in our community now are not so young. They might be in their late 20s
Mm-hmm.
or early 30s, and they know something is missing from their life.
Yeah, everybody.
And so,
everybody cares about each other, so I can see that.
right.
Yes, ma'am.
So, but it is a challenge.
Yes, ma'am.
But pray like crazy. Ask God if that's really what you want.
Yeah.
What God wants of you.
Okay. That is all. Thank you so
Wait,
much for your time.
Oh, you're welcome. Sorry about all the trouble. I'm going to work on that Skype now so that I'll be able to get that set up.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
anyway, anything else? I'm sorry, I don't know anything about that Rose Thurman, but I do know what she was talking about. And I know that from my experience of studying curriculum, when I worked in the Archdiocese of Chicago, I was with Cardinal George and Cardinal Bernardine, and they were very, very clear on not having anything anti-Semitic in any of the religion texts.
Yes, ma'am. That's good.
So she did have, even though we may not know her, she must have had some influence over the development of curriculum throughout the country.
Yeah.
So anyway, I hope this was helpful,
Yeah.
useful.
Yes.
Thank you, Aunt Sally.
Thank you.
You're welcome.